Pro-Israel groups have set sights on unseating this progressive lawmaker. Will they succeed? That may be anti-Zionist, but totally not anti-Semitic headline is from The Guardian, talking about the race in a Missouri seat for the House of Representatives, where squad member Cori Bush is fighting for her third tenure in Congress, and she has a primary challenger tomorrow. Her challenger is Wesley Bell. APAC has put a lot of money into this race, which of course raises concerns by the most concerned of citizens. The most concerned of citizens were concerned about the attempts to wipe the Jewish state off the map, maybe not succeeding, and making sure that America keeps siding with Hamas, and of course concerned about many other policies that a squad member would have. This squad member, I think, was the one who voted the second least times with Biden's policies in during Biden's time in office, which you might think is not that bad, but she voted for him because voted against him because he's not left wing enough for her, and of course he is not. Oh, that's my voice again. He's not anti-Israel enough for her either. So yeah, will Cori Bush follow in the footsteps of George H.W. and lose a race? Yeah, that was not what I was gonna go with, but anyway, that's why we should stick to the script. Welcome to the Daily Objective. Daniel, your thoughts on this race, which I know you've been following closely from day one.
Well, first off, I hate all the political families, the Kennedys, the Roosevelts, the Bushes. Okay, now here is the second lame joke. Now we can just talk about her. So something quick about her. So someone in the chat says Daniel's father slapped him on his dome. I have no idea what that means. But talking about the domes is something you have to realize about Bush is she is actually one of the politicians who is the least likely basically to show up for a vote. She's actually the one who's missed the most votes. And when she does show up, it doesn't inspire a lot in you either. So maybe just a quick rundown. So on September 2021, she was one of the 8 Democrats voting against the founding of Israel's Iron Dome. This is where the dome reference is. And that was 420 yes, 9 no. There was a one Republican who also opposed this. Maybe we'll talk about him at some point because he's really interesting in that he pretty much always votes with a squad, despite being a Republican. So that might be also an interesting thing to talk about. So she voted against the funding of the Israel's Iron Dome. Again, something that has just recently protected Israel from a big attack from Iran and might even now will now be also irreplaceable when the incoming attack from Iran will eventually come. Also on July 18, 2023, she was one of the 9 progressive Democrats to vote against a congressional non-binding resolution which states that the state of Israel is not racist or apartheid state, and that Congress rejects all forms of anti-Semitism and xenophobia. She had a problem with that, as well as 8 more progressive Democrats, and she voted against it. So now she might actually lose the election. She was actually doing much worse in the polls. So as you mentioned, I've been watching the polls at least. Towards like this, I think start of the year or more like April, I think she was very much behind, like a lot, but she has been catching up, which is really unfortunate to see. But she's still behind, I think, 6 points. So I hope the trend will continue and that these actual like pro-Hamas politicians in the U.S. Congress will finally start basically losing their seats, mainly because of the topic of Israel. I have a few more things to say, but let me send it back to you, Razi.
So yesterday we were talking about Iran and talking, I think in response to some troll comment about, Israel should fight its own wars rather than the U.S. fighting it. We made the point that this is America's war. They do chant death to America, and while it's not going to be as easy for them to achieve as death to Israel, it will be, parts of it can be achieved and damage can be caused. But it's interesting to see how the squad has kind of normalized anti-Americanism within mainstream U.S. politics. As bad as the Democrats were before, and as bad as the Republicans were before, there really is a seriously anti-American sentiment, not just in pushing policies that are so against what America was founded on, but also in allying themselves, at least. I don't know. I don't think she has burnt any American flags, but they're happy to align themselves with with the campus intifada people who are openly against Israel, openly anti-Semitic. We saw AOC go to some of these protests, and Ilhan Omar go to these protesters and talk to protesters who are chanting that they don't want a two-state solution. They want it all, as in they want the Palestinians, that saying more openly than usual that they want the Jews exterminated. And again, we have mainstream politicians who can win an election in a congressional district can win a primary and can then win against the opponent from the other side. This is something to really be concerned about, even if it's just four or five of them, and even if Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush lose their seats, you still have AOC, you still have Rashida Tlaib, you still have Ilhan Omar, and you still have this legitimized. Again, like you said, if she loses, it's not. There are still going to be many people who are going to vote for her. And let's. I want to read some of this article. So it's interesting if you read. When I read about this in the Wall Street Journal, I thought the article was way too uh, kind of way too forgiving to who she is. And then, of course, you read it in the Guardian, and the Guardian is openly supporting this because, of course, it's somebody who's anti-American and anti-Semitic. So the Guardian would get behind them. But the article starts, Representative Cori Bush has made a name for herself as a tenacious community activist and an outspoken progressive in the House. And now she faces a tough primary challenge from a local prosecutor who says that the congresswoman isn't focused on serving her voters. I mean, this all makes her sound like, such an ambitious and admirable person almost. And of course, she is not, as we will continue to talk about in this episode, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, the way Guardian talks about her, it's so I'm currently watching the series called A Designated Survivor. It's about basically what if all pretty much everyone in government would die and only one person who is the designated survivor becomes the president and the fallout from that. And because it is a political show, but it also tries to be sort of like not be too partisan on one side. It's sort of like you have this almost like generic like villain politicians who are just running on like hating the people or like being, sort of you automatically have him be a racist or something. So you have like the villain. And yeah, this is something that you almost see here. Like, yeah, you have this, this woman, this activist. I mean, of course, she's an activist. If she doesn't show up in Congress most of the time, she can do activism. Uh, and you have this guy with the money behind him. It's always follow the money. He has the he just has the support of the billionaires, support of the foreign states. So he's automatically a bad guy. But something that I was thinking about. So for a while, I have been thinking like, what is the actual job of a politician? Like, what should a politician be? specifically in the US, you are in a sense supposed to represent your congressional district. You know, all the members are elected from some specific area. And and there is a question like, does she actually represent the people there? If you know, you are elected on some platform and you go uh, into the House of Representatives, supposedly, like you know, representing something. And is this what they want of her only? Just to like be pretty much stand up against Israel at any point she can, and basically that's her only platform. Because whenever we hear about it, that's what we hear about. That's what we always hear about. Uh, so there will be sort of like a question like, is she actually representing the people that she was elected by? And if she loses that election, it probably might mean that no. I mean, she was trying to remember when was she last elected, because of course it was before the October 7. But now I like to see the fact that yeah, it seems like there is an opposition to her again coming from the Democrats. Uh, it's nice to see that there is still at least some sort of that moderate pro-Israeli support. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's important to remember. So when Wesley Bell talks about, why people should vote for him, he does talk about, the fact that she's not good enough for her district, and that she doesn't bring enough federal funds into the district. There are no, again, there are no good guys in the story, but there are just some really, really bad people, and I think Cori Bush is very clearly one of those people. So yeah, this is still the Democratic primary, and when I say the squad normalized anti-Americanism in mainstream politics, we see a lot of that anti-Americanism now on the right, and most of it is with right-wing commentators, but more and more of it is getting to be a thing with right-wing politicians. And from what I so far understand about JD Vance, he is basically taken that to the next level for somebody at that level. If he does become vice president, then the future of America is very much anti-American. Um, a couple of things I wanted to address. So Davy Boy says Nicolas Maduro is blaming international Zionism for the campaign against him. Yeah, you see that more and more, and that kind of makes it difficult for those who try to tell us that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. But yeah, the word Zionism means Jews. That's what people mean when they say it. That's not what it means, but that's what people mean when they use it as a negative. That is a way of saying Jews without being, let's say, legally anti-Semitic in countries where there are hate speech laws. So something from this Wall Street Journal article, again, I was disappointed with the Wall Street Journal for the way they reported this. There's a paragraph where it starts with a quote: "Everywhere I go, I see Wesley," said Yael Shomroni, a 63-year-old Israeli American who supports Bush, referring to pro-Bell and anti-Bush ads aired by the prosecutors campaign by outside groups. Wesley Bell is a prosecutor. And then another quote, "And Cori cannot fight it. She doesn't have the money to have commercials every 2 minutes of the day." And, that's another thing with these, the more intelligent among the anti-Semites will always give you some Jew who's on their side. But the fact that, and of course, having it be an Israeli Jew is an added bonus. But yeah, make no mistake about it. When these people face opposition, they will likely blame the Jews. And in some cases, when people say, "Actually, I don't like the fact that you are against the only semi-free country in the Middle East, and I am going to campaign against you," then they will insinuate that this is somehow, the Jews are, controlling things, and this is another thing they're controlling.
Uh, I actually wanted to comment on something, but now I forgot. So maybe just to talk more about, because I talked about what basically Bush did in the past. But even after October 7th, she was very quick on her feet and to introduce many things. So she actually did condemn the Hamas attacks on October 7th. I think that the day off. So at least that's nice to see. But then immediately, just a week after, on October 16, she has actually introduced a resolution calling for a ceasefire, which pretty much means, okay, Hamas did this and they can get away with it. They can just do it, and there will be no consequences. Again, we've seen many, especially coming from the squad, many, calls for ceasefire, which in this case just mean that Hamas completely gets away with it. And again, ceasefire doesn't just mean something to remember is there are still hostages in Gaza. Ceasefire doesn't automatically mean that the hostages are magically released. The hostages are still there, and something still would have to be done uh, about them. And if you have this idea of permanent ceasefire as a starting point, the only way to get the hostages out after that is to release more terrorists, basically letting them continue and try again. Maybe they can do more next time. Uh, and she, of course, has called Israeli an apartheid state, which is the classic point that you hear everywhere, and again, has absolutely no ground.
Yeah. So thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Some more interesting things that came up in this Wall Street Journal article. Um, so uh, I'll just read from the article. This week's election forces Bush to prove herself to a broader sector of skeptical voters, from Jewish voters who expressed resentment over her stance on Israel after the Hamas-led attacks on October 7th, to those who disapprove of her calls to defund the police. Bush's district includes the city of St. Louis, as well as some close-in suburbs such as Ferguson. Then there's a quote: St. Louis is a community that's got a high rate of black-on-black crime, said Daryl Henderson, a retired social studies teacher who was planning to support Bell. And the last thing I thought we needed was a representative in Congress who's advocating for less police action and funding. Yeah, again, anybody who follows the Black Lives Matter movement, not even very closely, but just a little bit, knows that black on black crime does not matter to them at all. Those black lives don't matter to Black Lives Matter. It's the ones who are killed by police, no matter the circumstances, which is why they're calling for the defunding of the police. Yeah, what kind of impact that they think that would have on crime? We've seen the results where the police was defunded or funds were cut. We're also going to talk a little bit about that, or I'm going to bring it up when we talk about the UK riots that are happening nowadays. But yeah, her policies across the board are something you would not have heard Democrats 20 years ago talking about defunding the police. That's an insane policy that encourages crime. I mean, if you think there are problems with how crime is enforced, you offer solutions that involve enforcement in ways that reduce the whatever problems there are. You don't say we should stop enforcing the law, which is what defunding the police means. So yeah, she is despicable and dangerous all around, as are all squad members, and yeah, which is why, again, even when you're in such a situation, you do end up going to vote even for a person who says they want to increase federal funding for whatever crap they think the government should build in St. Louis, as long as it's not defunding the police and supporting Hamas.
Yeah, so when the idea of defund the police, so someone in the chat says because it's easier to blame an organization than individual actions. Well, something to remember is you are dealing with the government. If you are a politician, you cannot say, well, it's just individual action. We're not gonna do anything about it. There are problems in America, and there are possible solutions. But again, when people talk about the idea of defund the police, I hear something similar to when I hear a lot of libertarians just talking about, well, let's just have smaller government, or let's just have lower taxes. Okay, and then what? Like, what? There are problems that are in America. What are the solutions? And again, when it's just defund the police, okay, but what then? What do you have after that? How are you again? How are you gonna enforce laws if the end point is basically completely getting rid of police? Like, yeah, these sort of ideas again are just anti, we just hate the police. We just see, in a sense, and some of them do, some of them just view police itself as basically the root of all evil, and if you just get rid of the police, then you somehow everything is fixed. Again, it sort of shows how, yeah, these groups sort of meet. It's again similar to libertarians. Well, let's just get rid of the government. Well, and then what? It's like that's not a solution. You are not actually providing any solution. You are just fueling whatever the problem is right now.
Yeah. So as I said, I was disappointed with that Wall Street Journal article. The Guardian article, of course, is special in its own way. Not special as far as Guardian articles are concerned, but one of the images they show there is her sitting next to Rashida Tlaib with one of those uh, signs that have made her made Rashida Tlaib a meme in recent weeks. But this is from Biden's State of the Union, and it says "Stop sending bombs." They both have them, and they both have the terrorist scarf that has also become popular among fans of the goals of Hamas. This article says Bush introduced a resolution calling for a ceasefire on October 16th. Yeah, Daniel, you mentioned that. That is again, that is a call for genocide. If in the clearest of terms to say that, 9 days after that attack. Within days, the St. Louis prosecutor Wesley Bell announced he was dropping out of a race against a Republican for one of Missouri's seats in the U.S. Senate to challenge Bush for the Democratic nomination in the St. Louis congressional district. It was swiftly apparent that Bell, who has firmly supported Israel's actions, had the support of the U.S.'s major pro-Israel groups, which have now poured millions of dollars into trying to make him the Democratic candidate in one of the party's safest congressional seats. Wow, the Guardian has no shame. The Guardian really has no shame. The way they the way they talk about Israel supporters, the fact that Israel supporters put money behind stuff. They never talk about Iranian money and where that goes. They don't talk about Qatari money supporting the campus intifada. They don't talk about the money. Money is evil to these people, but when it's terrorist money, it's not so much. When it's Jewish money, I think it's more evil than otherwise. Yeah, to me that that paragraph shows Wesley Bell in a very good light. He was going for a Senate seat, and he's like, no, this is a despicable human being who is representing St. Louis, and I am not gonna allow it, and I'm gonna run against her. So well done.
So when it comes to sort of like a lobby groups, in a sense, I'm sort of split. I do like the idea of basically, let's say you are a Jewish American, or you don't even have to be, but let's say you really do care about the cause of Israel, and you want more representatives in the House that would basically project this view. You cannot spend all your time researching every single congressional, all 400 plus congressional districts, like who is the most pro-Israeli candidate. It makes sense to have this sort of like a lobby group, which you can donate to, and basically they are in a sense representing your view. They are putting your view forward. But on the other hand, if these people really do want to see the sort of the thing is, they have caused the sort of lobby system. They are the ones who have caused it. Once you have government be involved in economics, once you have government, in a sense, be involved in these sort of actions, there will be groups forming that are going to trying to both benefit and push from it, and you have this sort of like a in a sense problem. But again, that is caused by the government being involved in so many things that everyone has to have a say. Everyone, there is if you read just the first few pages of Atlas Shrugged, one of the protagonists needs to have a man in Washington because everybody needs a man in Washington. If you are a big business, you need someone representing to you. Otherwise, you are going to get screwed over. And this is a problem of the system, but it's a problem that it's not a problem of the money. It's a problem of the government involving itself in the economy and in so many different aspects of life.
Yeah. Kurtz Bratton says Busta Rhymes is the only one who talks about getting Arab money. It's been Busta Rhymes is still around. Like I was a teenager when he was big, but yeah, I'm not familiar with. I should refamiliarize myself with other aspects of the culture. And Akira corrects me. He says, "You're wrong, Razi. They love Jewish money. They're only mad because Jews are not giving them the money." Uh, yes, and again, remember, this is money that is staying within the Democratic Party. It's you know, it's still it's still on the left. Not that there's any reason to give it to the right. But yeah, you know where Jewish money should go is the Ayn Rand Center UK, Jewish, Gentile, whatever money it is, because really these people to the left and to the right need to be out of a job or at least need to be not the complete consensus in the culture and have some people challenging them on some things. Otherwise, you end up with people like the Squad in Congress, and you end up with people on the streets like we're seeing in the UK and like we are going to talk about on today's episode of the reality show. The riots in the UK in the past week or so are getting worse and worse. Uh, and yeah, we're about to talk about that. I know the title for that episode has pissed some people off, and so we're going to talk about the title as well. But make sure you tune into that. The reality show follows in a minute. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks, Daniel. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.